This podcast is produced by Northwest Michigan Community Action Agency. The Collective Us, an NMCAA podcast, focuses on inspiring you through stories of those we've helped through our programming or by linking local resources to community members in need. Join us as we learn about the programs offered through NMCAA and how we touch people's lives every day. Thank you for joining us on The Collective Us. I'm Erica Austin.
And I'm Ryan Buck. The kids aren't even out of school yet, but it's already time to start thinking about next school year.
That's right. The 2025-2026 school year isn't too far off. And if you have a little one at home taking those first steps into an academic setting, it could be unsettling for parents, especially first-timers, and maybe a little nerve-wracking for the child.
So today we are hoping to help settle those nerves, calm any of those fears and questions, and let's jump right in by introducing our guests. We have in the studio with us today Diana Middendorp, NMCAA education coach. Welcome.
Hi, Ryan. Thanks for having us.
We also have Chris Daniel, a returning guest from our panel at our live 50th anniversary show, but a first-timer to the studio. And Chris is a Head Start teacher. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Here in the calm, less live setting. So here we both are, and we want to jump into the experience of preschool with NMCAA and what that looks like for a family in our region. With NMCAA, we talk about taking care of everybody, which I am always so fascinated by. So let's start at the beginning. If someone is interested in enrolling now, what is the best way to do that?
Yeah, so if you're thinking about getting your child in next year, you're going to want to do that as soon as you possibly can. You're going to want to visit the NMCAA website. In there, there's going to be a link to our child development department. Through that, you'll do what's called a pre-application. And once that pre-application is completed, one of our amazing health and recruitment specialists will reach out to take a full application. Just a heads up, we do ask a lot of questions. We have a lot of boxes we have to check for our funding. But no fear, everything that we ask is kept completely confidential. That information is not shared with anyone outside of us having the numbers in the boxes checked for our requirements. After that, it's a little bit of a wait time to get children rolling for the next year. But typically the recruitment specialist will give you kind of an idea of when they'll be reaching out for a placement in a classroom.
Yeah. So I've talked a lot on the show about my son being in the GSRP classroom last year, and he's in kindergarten now, but my daughter is approaching that. She's 3, and I'm excited, hopefully, to get her in. So I just wanted to share, going through this a second time, NMCAA has updated their intake process, which I thought was really cool.
But
so now
that's been talked about consistently on the show, right? Is making things easier and
Yeah.
updating intake,
Yeah.
which is really fascinating.
Yeah, so this time around, I actually just within the last 2 weeks have gone in to do her form, her interest form, and almost immediately I got a text that said, hey, we've got you signed up for an appointment with Liz on this date. And it was just so simple, and I loved that it was so convenient. So I thought that was really important to point that out, because last time with my son,
It was different.
it was more of like they had to have a phone call. It didn't happen immediately. So there was just it was a very good.
That's fascinating.
experience.
We have been talking about, and I've been watching this growth of the improvement of the guest experience to NMCA a lot. We've been kind of low-key talking about these things, and it's been made manifest for an experience that you had. And it was Liz, you got a name of somebody?
Yeah.
And via text.
It was via text.
Now, to ask a basic question, and this happens a lot, if you don't have the access to the internet right now or temporarily, you can you call? Because that's a consistent at NMCA. You can call, you will connect with somebody, and they can help you.
Yeah, somebody will definitely walk you through the process. The support staff we have in our offices are just absolutely amazing, and they will get you where you need to go.
And Diana, you said, and feel good about sharing. What's important is that there are a lot of questions. So yes, please do share that. But is there a question that typically stumps people that they should be prepared for ahead of time? One that you talk about in the office, like this gets everybody.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say a specific question, but kind of a series of questions. We do ask a lot about the child's past experiences and the family experiences. Part of our funding is based off meeting the needs of children who might be at risk. So there are questions in there about, has there been a history of abuse or alcoholism, something somewhere in the family that may have an impact on the child. And we ask those questions because we are based on the higher the need, the higher the priority to get a child into a classroom. So some of those questions definitely do feel very personal. But again, those things are kept completely confidential. They're not shared out. They're just simply to make sure that we're meeting the needs of the children who need it the most.
Yeah.
Thank you for
I
sharing
want
that.
to add two more things. So I noted when I was doing the interest form, yes, there was a lot of questions, but it's all things that you already know. You don't have to fill out any income information or any of that. That's what that meeting with Liz is about, or one of our other
Oh,
RNH
wow.
specialists.
Okay.
So that form, it only took me maybe 5 to 7 minutes. It wasn't long at all. There was a lot of questions, but it was all very simple. And the other thing I wanted to note was you mentioned the higher risk kids. And I know that some of those children, once that form has been done and they sat down with the RNH specialist, they are already making some of those selections or will be very soon, which is much earlier than we ever have in the past. So you might not have to wait quite as long as a parent to actually hear whether or not your child's getting into a class. So that's a kind of a benefit of getting it done early.
Big changes that we've seen this year, and we had a little bit last year, is that early acceptance. It used to be 2 weeks before school started is when you found out. And now, it's happening very soon. So a lot of times before summer, you will know where your child will have a spot in a classroom.
Yeah.
So,
and as a parent who has gone through the program and had to wait until a couple weeks before, it's like, am I going to have to send him to daycare? Am I going to send him to preschool? I don't know. And it's like really nerve-wracking. So it's appreciated as a parent to get that info early.
Wonderful.
So it is important to note, filling out the interest form does not mean you're automatically enrolled. We have a number of students we can accept per classroom, and those are based on priority, like we mentioned. And while children unfortunately meet some of those priority points and are selected first, it doesn't mean your child won't get it if they don't check the boxes.
Correct.
Diana, you've been with NMCAA a while. We talked about longevity.
Yep. It'll
specifically at NMCAA.
21 years next month.
Drop it like it's hot. That's fantastic. Not to put you on the spot, but have you ever taken part in the selection process? And can you tell us some of the factors that play into selecting a child to be in the classroom?
So I've actually been involved in the process in numerous ways. I started with Head Start NMCAA as a parent. So I actually went through the process 22 years ago to have my son enrolled. At that time, his was a home-based program. So the teacher came out once a week and we did activities, and she really helped me grow as a parent. So I was involved with having to do all of that intake stuff too. Back then it was paper and pencil. She sat down at the house with me and did all of those things. So the process has changed and grown. I've seen it go from, they did it at the home to then we started meeting at a center, but you had to call Cadillac first and you had to go through this long process. And it might be a month before you heard back from somebody to even do the intake paperwork. So lots of different facets. As a teacher, we used to do the class selections. So we would look at this big wait list and look at which children, which families needed to get in the fastest, which children, might want to go somewhere else or might have different criteria for different programs. Always our goal is to get as many children in as we possibly can. All children benefit from a preschool experience. No matter what their background is, it's a good experience for them to see. So myself now as an education coach, I'm not as involved in that process of class selection unless a child comes in with what's called an IFSP or an IEP. If they may have some differing needs than our general education setting students, then I will help go through that and see if our classroom is the best spot for them to be. So I do help in that process some, but yeah.
And some of those factors, other than the ones you mentioned, are maybe a foster child,
Yeah.
or maybe they're even adopted, or
Yep.
things like that. Are there other things I'm trying to think of what some of the other ones are that
any families that may be experiencing homelessness.
That's a big one, yeah.
That's a big one. That's, we work really hard to get those kiddos
Yeah.
in a classroom.
Some of the questions I know that they asked on the form also were like, do you currently get food benefits?
Yes.
Things like that. So
Yep,
those are
SNAP
some of those things that
benefits.
are those check boxes that we mentioned
Yep.
already that might get you into the programs faster
Yeah.
than others. Chris, I understand you have a student this year who is deaf. What are some ways that we accommodate this student throughout their day? And are there other students that you've had who you've had to accommodate in some ways based on their specific needs?
Yes, so many children come into our classrooms. They all need a variety of different means to achieve their goals in the end. So for this child that we're speaking of, they've come into the classroom. We've provided an environment that is conducive for them to be able to learn ASL through their peers and through the adults throughout their day. Additional staff trainings have happened. We have partnered with the family to try to blend as much of the ASL in the classroom to meet those that's done at home, because the ASL has a lot of different qualities depending on who is doing it. So we're really trying to bring that all together and support them through their journey. It's truly remarkable. Other children have come into the program that have needed additional language structuring, such as speech, and we've connected them to the resources through the ISD. We've also worked with many different other concerns that I can't really recall off the top of my head right now, but they're there.
Yeah.
So.
That's interesting that in all of that, you mentioned that additional staff training was offered. So this is interesting. As a professional, you get to receive elevated or unique training.
Mm-hmm.
And how is that organized? Does NMCAA organize that? Because that's another element of the organization that really astounds me, that the fact that so many internal employees are lifted up educationally, people are helped in getting degrees. So what does that look like in getting additional training?
That is a very wide question to answer, and I can answer a few parts of it. So our agency has done a wonderful time improving employees through their learning, right? So I, for one, have used many of the resources to go farther in my educational career. But this training specifically for the children in the classroom that need that a little bit for the staff to be supported, we reach out to our coaches or other support staff through the agency. Hey, I need trainings in these areas. They help us find these trainings, provide the resources, the funding if necessary, and help us facilitate and go through those trainings together. And so it's just quite amazing. If you want to improve yourself, this is the place to be. It truly is.
Yeah.
Again, that
Yeah.
always gets me, that
Yeah.
those opportunities for people who are especially lifelong learners or really get energy from that. I like a good team building way. And again, additional learning still can be team building, I think, especially the group of people at NMCAA. I think probably you all make it quite fun. That's just my own interjection, I'm sure, when you all get together, but I think it's wonderful. And Chris, do you have any other examples or any fun stories that you can think of accommodating students or situations in a unique way, or something that you're particularly happy or proud of how you pivoted? It could be through any kind of special need, any kind of unique way to learn, engaging or matching energy with a student in a different way.
All of that, of course. So
Yeah. If
going
one
back,
just strikes you as just makes your heart happy, something that
when
to
you come
share with
into
the
the
audience.
preschool classroom, you really truly meet the energy of the group. So if the group is high energy, you need to be up there with their energy levels. If you come in there with low energy, it's not going to be a good time for you or them. But also connecting with them when their energy is low and they need that chill time and bringing that energy down low. It's constantly riding that rhythm of the classroom. And as you go and do that, you'll become more energized with them and have those rest periods with them. It's truly a fascinating process to be in the classroom and riding those levels. So
You seem very adaptable and just ready to make any rise to any challenge and any student's needs. So that's pretty amazing to see. That's awesome.
Yeah. Diana, as an education coach, how do you help teachers prepare for a new school year? We're kind of switching gears a little bit
Ooh.
here.
Yeah, this is juicy.
So preparing for a new school year. So beginning of the year, there's lots of time for trainings. We're definitely trying to grow their skills right at the beginning of the year, helping them to get home visits scheduled, to get orientations scheduled, to kind of look through and see what the needs of their classroom may be. Are they a higher age group of children? Are they all 3-year-olds?
Sure.
What might we need to change in the classroom? Do we have a child that needs a wheelchair that we need to adjust the way the furniture is laid out so that they are successful navigating the room? So we spend a lot of time, talking through that and focusing on that. And it really depends on the teacher. Chris has been with us for a long time. His is a classroom that functions pretty well on their own. Yes, I'm there to support them. But if we have brand new teachers or teachers that have only been here a year or two, more likely you're going to see me in their classrooms more just to help support them in learning this job. It's a big job. But yeah, so it really depends. The other thing with my role is really helping teachers to set their own goals. Where do they want to grow? What skills do they want to improve? So we do offer, it's called practice-based coaching. So if we have anyone in the classroom, it's available to them. If they want to improve certain things, maybe they want to improve the math literacy, those types of things in the classroom, we'll set goals, and then I meet with them monthly and help provide resources and trainings to them to help them grow as teachers. So
That's a big job as well.
it is. It's such a fun job, though. We
Yeah.
have such amazing team members
Yeah.
at NMCAA that they're just fun to work with. They have growth mindset. They want to grow. They want to become better at what they do. And it's just such a beautiful thing to experience.
Yeah. And you mentioned new teachers
Yeah.
or less experienced teachers. How do you help prepare them for what's expected of them as they walk into a classroom, maybe the first or second year?
Yeah. So it's interesting. Our onboarding has so many different parts to it. New teachers are coming in needing to learn all of our state licensing requirements. They're needing to learn all of our program specific requirements, policies and procedures. With our funding the way it is, it's a lot. There's a lot of things to learn. And then, hey, you have to be a teacher too. So all of these pieces and parts tend to be kind of the beginning of our onboarding, and then just kind of helping them through the process of what that first couple days will look like. First couple days can be pretty overwhelming, but keeping those safety pieces in place for them, helping them to, learn how to do active supervision. So we're counting children regularly throughout the day. If we're going outside, we're counting before and after to make sure that children are accounted for, that they're safe wherever they're at within our buildings. We provide a lot of professional development. The other thing that we have done some of, especially for new teachers, we do a mentoring program. So I might have a brand new teacher start at a center, and I might reach out to Chris and say, hey, Chris, I have a brand new teacher. Are you willing to field some questions, have a phone call, go get a cup of coffee with them? Just something to help support them in the process, because it is a big job. And, we say it takes a village for children. It takes a village for our teachers too. Anytime we're learning something new and in new roles, just having that support around us is huge.
Chris, can you touch on some of your experience, whether I don't know, how long have you been with NMC? I don't have that
Yeah, I was just
information.
gonna be like,
More than a year, less than 21.
So I don't know how recent your new experience as a teacher was that we were just talking about.
I've been
with the agency for almost 13 years.
Okay, so it's been a little while.
It's been a smidgen.
But maybe you can talk to either being more of that mentor role, or even if you recall having a mentor, what that might have been like 13 years ago.
13 years ago, there was not really a mentor system.
Okay.
Nope, but that's okay.
Improvements, that's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah,
We've
no
come
shade,
along.
no
We
shade,
truly
yeah.
have come a long way.
We
So
really have.
going after Diana and talking about like the onboarding process for teachers, it is so much more smoother and easier to become a teacher now than it was years ago in this profession, and it's great. They ease you into it. They give you a listening ear for when you're feeling frustrated, you need to vent or figure out strategies. They help you bond better as a team in the classroom. There's so much more growth now than there was. Kind of go back to how children come into our agency and it's easier for you to get your child in.
Yeah.
The process of a teacher starting is so much smoother now than it was. It's crazy just how much has changed in a few years that I've been here, which is cool.
Yeah.
But going back to the original question, So mentoring, I have had the blessing of being a mentor a few times over the years, and it's a really cool process watching and connecting with someone and helping through their struggles. And like, I remember those days. It's okay. Down the road, you won't even care. But at this moment right now, it's a big looming object in your
Sure.
vision, sure. But helping them get around those and establishing those tactics to be able to glide through that easier is a cool process for them and for me to think I made it this far. So
Yeah,
it's
that's
cool.
very cool.
Can I
Yeah.
talk just a little bit more about that? So the other thing that NMCAA has really been amazing with is developing our own staff. Like for myself, I said I started out as a parent. The teacher who was doing home visiting was getting ready to open a classroom. She called me. She's like, I need a classroom aide. So
Yeah, see, I saw it
started
22 years ago you started as a parent.
Yeah, as a
21
parent,
years ago
as exactly
you started
as
working.
an employee.
Same story.
Yep.
How many
Yeah,
times
I
does this
know.
happen?
Yeah.
So, I started out in that classroom aide position and then ended up becoming an assistant because, again, I was encouraged to further myself. I barely graduated high school. And within a couple of years of being with Head Start, I did what was called my Child Development Associates. A couple of years after that, I was encouraged to start my associate's degree and then to move on for my bachelor's. I actually last year completed my master's degree.
Yeah, kudos.
So it's been a process, and where I started as a parent, as a very young parent, I was 21 with 3 small children. Not in a spot in my life I would have ever considered going back to college, but through the support and encouragement of our agency, I've grown and they've encouraged me to do that. And with our teams, we look at that so much. If we have a classroom aide or an assistant, we encourage them, do the best we can to help them with funding, find teach grants, things like that, because we know at some point we're going to want another teacher for somewhere. So to be able to take someone who's been an assistant, already kind of knows the program, has some idea of the role, and is amazing with the kids, and be able to help them with the education process so that they can move into a teacher position. It's a huge focus for us.
Wow.
Okay, see, I didn't know this. I did not know your journey.
Yep.
We were not
journey.
teed up for that, if I may. Barely graduated high school
Yeah.
to masters.
To masters.
Thank you, NMCAA.
Yep.
Amongst all that, leading teachers and guiding students, how many you can't even count.
No.
So
I know.
that's pretty cool,
Yeah.
if I may. Sorry, my jaw's a little
No.
bit because
No,
of the
that's
synergy
okay.
of that. And again, that wasn't teed up. Everybody, this is a free podcast. Anybody can listen.
Yeah. And so often parents come to us and they may be embarrassed by their situation. They may be at a state where they are experiencing homelessness because something has happened in their past. The teams that NMCA has are probably the least judgmental people I've ever met. I can look back at my journey and, that's just a part of it. I was in rehab at 16 years old. I was having a baby before my senior year of high school. I had a teacher that looked at me and said, "You have potential." And that's all it took was one person to believe in that. So for me, people ask, why are you still here 21 years later? That's why. So,
Yeah.
sorry.
No, we all
Again,
feel that.
all very organic that this came up. And I just, as a person, am very inspired by the fact that people are given these opportunities because of an MCA. And you said it, not judgmental, because you talked about home visits. And Chris mentioned it about being a teacher who've been there. You've been there.
Yep.
So many people at NMCAA don't judge you because they have
No.
been there before themselves, or they have a colleague who have been, or they're doing this grind because they want to help you
Yes.
in these particular trenches. And on that note, Chris, your demographic, your audience, they're coming in, and I'm really fascinated by this question. So
Okay.
please bear with me.
Sure.
We know what we know. And kids up until walking into this classroom may only know the life that they have. And it could be very nuanced. It could be very challenged, even at a young age. So what are the things you do as a teacher to help ease this transition?
Oh, man.
This very,
What a broad question.
Yeah.
But a good question nonetheless.
yeah.
How do we ease that transition? So, for the transition of the child, I think the first thing that we ease first is the transition with the parent. So, we start with them and connecting with them first when they shoot that text message and starting to establish that phone message later on from the teachers like, hey, let's set up orientation. Do you have any questions or concerns? Once that stress level starts deteriorating with the parent, then we kind of, we bring them into the classroom. We start connecting with the child. We ask questions, what they like, what they not like, what quirks might they have, what makes them unique, special. And then we start trying to design the classroom for that environment. Once that classroom environment is suitable and created for those children to come to the classroom, it's an easy process because all the hard work has been front-loaded in designing that. And then it's just time to make those connections with them and establish those friendships that you're a trusted adult, that they can trust you as they navigate their day. But it's a very cool process.
Wow.
Very cool.
Trust came up a lot.
Yeah.
That's a big deal. But individualized,
Yeah.
personalized,
Yeah.
I don't know, that's like a big takeaway.
Yeah.
So a big way to make somebody feel comfortable is to make them feel heard and seen and feel like a little bit of this at least is for me.
Yeah.
Although that there's several other people similar to my height and basic interests, it feels like this is for me.
Yeah. That's really cool. Yeah.
I didn't
Really
feel that
profound.
growing up. I was thrown into a room and scared and I wanted my mom.
Yeah.
And I don't know if my parents were.
Yeah.
I'll have to ask them how they felt about me being thrown into those wolves.
I mean, just speaking as a parent, sending your first one off is so nerve-wracking. You're like, do I trust this adult? I mean, like, how
Right.
are they going to be okay? Like, so that having that come straight from your mouth is just so like, reassuring.
You said it in a
I
particular
mean,
way that really rings.
Yeah. Okay, Chris.
This is a hard question, actually. Yeah.
I'm a student in your classroom.
Okay.
What does my daily routine look like?
What's your daily routine look like? Ooh, would say your daily routine is having a relaxing, enjoyable exploration of your world. It is going through and connecting with peers, exploring new toys, finding out who you are, what you like. Maybe it's different from yesterday. Maybe it's going to be different tomorrow. But in that moment, you are learning, taking in the environment, building the small building blocks that will create your adulthood much later in life. Your day is full of excitement. It's full of energy. It has its tired moments as you get to the end of the day, but you are excited about tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And then you come back, you relive the whole experience again. Mm-hmm. And it's a beautiful process.
And I don't have this question written, but I'm just kind of based on what I already know. I've also talked about volunteering when my son was in GSRP. I'm assuming you're counting all day long, talking about colors, doing those preschool things. What are some of the unique ways that you incorporate those types of things into this exploring of this new world for these preschoolers?
So the academics in our classroom is truly designed in the environment. Our environment is our teacher. The colors, the numbers, the literacy. It's all throughout all the toys they play with, all the conversations they have with the adults, all the interactions. So it naturally occurs over and over again in the environment without the child really noticing.
Yeah.
And without even the adults noticing because they've done it for so long and they're such masters of it.
Yeah, I just recall, again, I'm always talking about my experience as a parent, but I volunteered in the classroom and we were walking down from the classroom to the gym to go spend some time like running around and counting as we're going out the door, every single child. And we're, put your bubble in your, to keep quiet down the hallway. And they're doing all these really cool things. And I was just like, as a parent, like, wow, this is really cool. Like, you don't think about those things when you're not in that environment, but you do this every day. It's something that you're used to. So
can I share something?
Absolutely.
It gives me so much anxiety, the thought of having to wrangle all of those. Not just the safety. It's just like, I don't want to have to be mean or be like, you have to be quiet now. I know the
bubble
clap attention.
Yeah.
I have so much anxiety. I just want to just dance around, make them happy.
I have a hard enough time with my 4 kids. I don't need 16 or more.
So it's a superpower. It's a high level superpower that I think is very specific to, I think it can be maybe learned or trained, but there is something innate that, because I think about it, my heart races in a bad way.
In a bad way.
With that, one of the big things that our teachers focus on is really connecting with children when they can have fun and the children see them as fun and engaging, as safe. It's not as difficult to wrangle those kids, as you put it.
Yeah.
Sometimes at the beginning of the year, we say it's like herding cats.
Yeah.
Right,
You know,
right.
it is, because they're not in the routine yet. They don't know
Yeah.
the expectations, but the teachers are so consistent and they make such good connections, strong, safe connections with the children, that when they say, you know, hey, we're going to line up to go outside, children are ready to do that. They're excited to go see what the next experience is going to be. So that's, you know, one of the perks again of our programs is our teachers are so focused on connecting and just getting to know those kids and helping them celebrate the people that they are and are going to become.
So, Chris, I want to know,
Mm-hmm.
what is the favorite part of the day for you?
Oh, the favorite part of my day. Okay. The favorite part of my day, right? And I have this happen every morning right now, and I love it. I love it. Is
I can't wait to hear.
when I go to the door, right? And they're not quite there yet to come in the classroom. I got this one little boy. He screams all the way from the fence, "Hi!" And he comes in. And he's so excited. He is just a ball of energy. Every morning he screams as loud as his little 3-year-old lungs can go.
Oh my goodness.
But it's excitement, scream. It's and his mom is like, "Here he is." And
Yeah.
I'm like, "I will take him." I will take
And
him.
he shoots in. I hear him like just screaming past you hilariously. And that's when I think of just the breadth of different personalities, even within that age range, that you have to be ready for and think about. And Diana, you're already teeing up that I think you would be a tremendous teacher. I'd love to have you as a teacher.
I was for 18 years.
Yeah.
So
And so,
I loved it.
Based on previous education coaches, and I feel like you are an in the trenches person, although you're not
Yes.
hovering. So we've had previous guests on the show who've had to sometimes step in as a sub or, you know, have to get in there,
Yeah.
as it were. So when that occurs, what's your favorite part of the day? With a little bit of distance, with a little bit of...
Oh, so when I step in as a sub, it's a very different feeling. You know, when I step in as a sub, I feel a little more responsible for like those safety pieces, making sure children are accounted for. When I am there as an education coach, I'm there more to observe the teachers' practices and also do some modeling. So like I said, I was in the classroom for 18 years. So I do thankfully have a wealth of tricks and techniques that I can help teachers with in different situations. But I have to say my favorite part of it is still, even as an education coach, what I like to call my rock star moments. And that, I know, rock star moments.
Yeah.
You don't think about rock stars and teachers, but when you
I beg to differ. I think all teachers are rock stars. But
yes,
continue.
I agree. But, you know, people don't always put those terms together.
Not as synonymous as they should be.
You know, so when you are all of a sudden in Meyer and you hear from across the store, Miss Diana, and that excitement and that you know that you have created such a connection with that child that they remember you. Sometimes even years later, I've had children that are now taller than me, much taller than me, come running across in a parking lot or in a store to say hi. And as an education coach now, I still have that ability to work with the children and connect with them. And when I walk in the door, I still hear that Miss Diana's here and that excitement.
And then you get mauled.
I do. I get mauled. You know, the kids know that if they need a hug throughout the day, I'm always willing to do that. And that's usually what they're greeting me with at the front door. So,
I believe that you know, a rock star, as it were, is recognized out in the wild and adulation and shouts, and then rushes too.
Yeah.
Is that not the definition of a rock star?
Yeah.
All right, I think we
so.
just put that to bed officially. Teachers are rock stars.
They are.
And speaking of influence and role models, Chris, I'm really fascinated to see your take and your unique look, you know, being a male role model in the class.
I wondered if this question was coming.
You know, what is there a benefit in any way to that? Or how does that affect your style?
So, yes, I bring a male perspective in the classroom, which comes with some bonuses and it comes with some negatives. So one of the coolest things in the classroom is my classroom with my awesome, amazing colleagues is that if a child comes in and they want to stay away from me, it's perfectly okay. They usually gravitate to my two awesome ladies I work with, Christy and Patty. But on the reverse side, sometimes they can gravitate toward me easier. So because of this balance in the classroom, children just enter it so much more easier and so much more gracefully. They have a free reign of who they prefer to play with, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And it's such a great thing to have.
That is a huge benefit, I think. I know there was some transition when my son was in the class from a teacher to a different teacher towards the end, and unfortunately, but he had all female teachers, as a lot of our teachers are, and he was so bummed. He's like, I just want a teacher who's a boy, and so I think in that situation, he would have probably gravitated right toward
Yeah.
you.
I like how we've created a little mystery because the way Chris has teed it up, who knows what he looks like? He's like,
Yeah.
some of them may want to run away from me and go to those
happens.
nice ladies over there. So, hey, check him out online somewhere if you want to see. I think he's awesome to look at, in my personal opinion.
Oh, that's too funny.
And speaking of like maybe wanting to see Chris,
Coming into the classroom? You what?
yeah, if you came into the classroom in the fall.
Okay, so coming into your classroom in the fall,
Okay.
as a brand new student or parent,
Yep.
potentially, how would it differ from me visiting your classroom in the spring?
Oh, the fall. The fall. I would say there's probably a little bit less organization going on, but in a good way. Children are learning their routines. They're trying to establish connections. They're not quite sure what to do or the expectations of the classroom in the fall, right? So that building block is just happening. Or if you come into this spring, you see more of a well-oiled machine happening. Children are a lot less anxious. They feel more free flowing into the classroom. It's funny because we're coming into the spring now. We're entering that where the children they know the routine. They can almost run the classroom by themselves.
They know what time it is.
They know it is almost time for lunch and they are hungry and they want their food. But in the beginning, they don't know what to do. And that's really where we come in and we work with them one-on-one and just kind of help them play, bond with each other, make those connections happen between peers and just help that establishment, that scaffolding happen in the classroom. But yeah, good question. Good question.
So one thing I found interesting as an NMCAA employee who's gone into a couple of different classrooms, I found that we are unable to utilize quote unquote worksheets or any papers of any kind. It's all just blank paper, which I think is great. But with that being said, what are some ways we can encourage young learners to prepare and also be kindergarten ready? Because now, being a parent of a kindergarten, I know how much paperwork he comes home with where he's writing and doing all those things every day. So can you kind of just elaborate on that a little bit?
So if we're going to go with the writing portion of it, one of the things we want to build up in children is their fine motor skills. So instead of worksheets and all that stuff, what you see in our classrooms, you see a lot of fine motor. They're using their fingers, playing with Play-Doh, Legos, small toys, puzzle pieces. So they're building that strength. So when it becomes that time for them later in life to start writing more, they have that skill. Not to say that they don't write in preschool. There is so much art that happens.
Oh, absolutely.
So much independent writing they want to do whenever they want. Other skills that are developed at this time is self-help skills. This is that time of the year where snow pants, snow jackets, building those skills.
Yep.
Building
Zipping.
that endurance to be able to go through that process as an adult and as a child. That's happening right now. But
Yeah, zipping up the snow pants, getting your
yes.
feet in both of them,
Yep.
then boots. Yeah, it is a whole process. Absolutely. Thank you for that.
Chris, what you've talked about has felt so adaptive. It's felt so personalized to the students, but that's almost in a way contrary to what maybe a lot of people think about is teaching. There's one way to do this. So I imagine as a teacher, you try to develop your teaching style. So how do you create your teaching style amongst having to be so flexible? And how does that play a role in how these skills are taught to the students?
that's a deep question. My teaching style varies year to year with the group of kids I get. The style itself is, we'll get there. It may be now, it may be later. Each child has different skill sets when they come in. So helping them connect, bridge, and scaffold over to where their skills should be is my goal. So it's constantly a changing environment. So say what my teaching style is I'm going to go back, adaptive is what it is.
Yeah. Wow. And Diana, how do you help teachers with different teaching styles? I'm assuming Chris is very adaptive. I'm sure a lot of our teachers are, but they probably have a little bit more, I don't even know what some of those other styles might be, but some may lean more one way versus another way. How do you help them find their style, I
Help them
guess.
find their style. So, yeah, definitely that focus on adaptability, knowing that every year is going to look different. Every child is going to have different needs. Again, through professional development, we have lots of conversations about that. What one child may need, another child may not. We may have a child who comes in that hasn't started potty training yet, which is okay. But then we have the same year, same day starting a child who's already reading. So with our teachers, they have to be very adaptable. They have to find what works best for the group and for the individuals in their classroom. In, early childhood, this range of children can have such a variance in where they're at in their own growth. And, our teachers really do a great job of helping each child on an individual basis. One of the nice things, amazing things with our programs is we do have more than one teacher in the classroom. So, Chris might be really strong at a certain thing, and his assistant Patty might be strong in something different, and Christy might be even better in something else. So having a couple of people in the classroom allows that teaching style to be a little more fluid. And, thankfully, we don't have those requirements like a first or second grade teacher does, that they have to be able to write this by this time of year, or they have to be able to, do multiplication by the middle of, this year. Children are developing at such different rates and such huge growth rates that, it can just vary so much. The teachers just become adaptive to that. And all of the teachers we work with are really good at just meeting students where they're at.
That's a
That's
common,
super
from there.
welcoming
common
and
theme.
beautiful, but it begs the question. And
Yeah.
because we don't want to be non-inclusive on the show, if you're a disc profile person, you're C's, you're people who love spreadsheets. What do you do with those people? Because you say adaptive.
Yeah.
Okay, you welcome people who may not be, let's sit in beanbag chairs and just chill out. So, what are you doing with your DCs, because
Your type D personalities, like myself.
See,
I'm
here
actually
you go.
I am a type D personality.
So you can welcome them too.
So yes, definitely can welcome them too. What I found throughout my years was, as long as I could maintain the structure of my day, everything else was okay. So, children arrived at a certain time, we started breakfast at a certain time. And not to say that if we were at breakfast and getting ready to start large group, children weren't required to immediately throw their things away and come over. It just meant that we started with some music and movement. Those that came in late or needed extra time to eat could still have that time to do that. But for me, in my D personality and need for structure, we have those specific things, routines throughout the day that still took place. And, as a D personality and needing those things, there's also the paperwork piece that comes with the teaching aspect. And that was another
cool.
area.
So there's plenty of paperwork?
Oh,
great.
If you love paperwork,
Did you hear that?
Their
D's
motor
and
skills
C's.
will increase.
Yeah. If we could teach the
Wonderful.
children how to do it, that'd be perfect.
Again, very welcoming to all. Again, those structural types, it's not me.
We can still
but I love
thrive.
working with them because they make it all work the right way.
We've mentioned home visits before on the show, and I know that setting family goals is a big thing that happens on those home visits. What kind of resources are given to families who have a child that's enrolled in our classrooms?
So that really depends on the parent. Where are their goals? Are they hoping to find a place to rent in the next little bit?
Sure.
Are they hoping to move out of their family's home? Are they hoping to start back to college? Are they simply focused on being the best parent they can be in that moment? Really dependent on what the family wants to do. As teachers, we don't set the goals for them. It's really, they're invested in their own lives, and we help them in whatever ways we can. So resources, we might simply give them a handout. We might give them a phone number for our first-time homebuyers programs. Just really depends on where they're at and where they want to go next.
Yeah. This time of year, we're giving out the information about taxes.
Yep,
That's
taxes,
coming up right now.
getting ready for kindergarten. So
Oh, yeah.
we do gather things from the local elementary schools to let them know kind of what they're hoping to have their children doing before they enter the classroom.
We might as well bring up weatherization too.
Weatherization,
Yeah.
Sure.
Sometimes we might go into a home and we notice there's really drafty windows. And, the parent might say, my heating costs are, through the roof. I can't afford to pay them. So, yep, we're going to give them that
So,
weatherization
as
information.
I'm sitting here, I'm wondering the communication between the parents and the teachers and or as an education coach, do you go into okay, I couldn't remember. I'm like home visits also with you. So the communication, they have to be either open to share that, or how do you approach something if you notice something when you're in the home that you're like, maybe their refrigerator isn't running or something. Yeah, I don't know if that would be something you'd notice, but you know what I mean? Like,
sure.
how would you approach something like that? Would you
Would
bring it up or
a lot of
depend on the
times-
situation?
A lot of times this time of year, the parents are so comfortable and, we're welcomed in that a lot of times the families will share. And if they're not ready to share, if they're not ready to reach out, we're not going to necessarily push that. But if we do notice something, like I said, the drafty windows, if I wasn't comfortable saying that to a family, I might just have the flyer to hand to them, with other things. We never want to make people feel uncomfortable. So sometimes it's just a matter of nonchalantly, we will give extra resources, and that's something that when they're comfortable, they can reach out for that.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to interrupt the podcast now because we have to celebrate some career milestone achievements. And
This is fascinating.
In
This
Mar-
is fast. This is your day.
in March, because that's when this episode drops, we are celebrating with Julia Foltz, who has 10 years with NMCAA.
And Diana Middendorp, as previously discussed on this show, 21 years with NMCAA. Kudos to you. That's amazing.
Yes. As always, we want to thank both of you for your hard work and dedication to NMCAA and what you do each day to help your community and your neighbors. I do want to point out something that was recently brought to my attention. NMCAA has 48 preschool classrooms across the region, which allows individuals like Chris and Diana to not only do work they love doing, but they also get to do it in their local community and make a difference and impact the lives of people in the community where they live. And I think that's pretty cool.
That is really cool. And growth. Diana, as an education coach, we're talking a lot about the things that you do and the support that you give. So let's continue focusing on you. So what kind of training are you into? What gets you going? What kind of trainings do you want at this point? Master's degree, you like education. So what opportunities do you seek out?
So my master's degree is actually in education, trauma, and resiliency. So my focus is on how trauma can impact children and how even at a preschool age, we can start to build resiliency to help children through any trauma they may have experienced. And also, sometimes families experience trauma in the past, and that still can come up and affect children's development. Teachers as well. We have interesting lives, and we don't always know what's happened in somebody's past. So I really am pretty focused on growth in that area. Right now, we are doing a training through Dr. Lori, and her focus is on educational applied neuroscience. So looking at the neuroscience of trauma, of connection, of what that connection piece and building the school family actually does for children. In the United States, we've seen such an explosion in behaviors. And, we're finding that some of that is children don't feel safe and they don't feel connected to their schools and their communities. And when you don't feel connected, when you don't feel safe, included, that's a need. That's a human fundamental need. And if we don't have those, that sometimes comes out in negative ways. So it's really, for me, that's where my mindset is, and that educational journey is just learning as much as I can about that and supporting Head Start with that and our outreaching community.
I think that's amazing. And it kind of leads into my next statement, which
Yeah.
is that we always, especially on this show too, we are always shouting out the teacher, telling them, as we've already done today, like, kudos to you because we couldn't do that job. But I think it's super important to also shout out people like yourself who are education coaches, and also the assistants in the classroom and all the
Hands
other
down.
people who support the teachers, because
Yeah.
those people are ultimately helping the children and families in our programs. So to all of our child and family development staff, kudos to all of you.
Yeah, a village was talked about.
Absolutely. So real quick, Diana, we kind of asked Chris about his favorite part of his day, and I know we asked about yours as when you're in the classroom, but what do you love about your job specifically? What's the most rewarding part for you?
The most rewarding part is really seeing that growth in teachers, just seeing, where they've started a few years ago. I have one of my teachers has not been here very long. She's been, maybe a year and a half. And to see the growth in her as not only a teacher, but as a human being, just to grow and develop within our school family has been, it's been really rewarding. And I had a little difficulty switching from the classroom to the education coach position because you do wonder what kind of an impact you're having. You're not focused on the growth of those children in the classroom, and now I can look at that and say, okay, I'm helping with the growth of teachers, which is then affecting the growth of the children in their classrooms. So just watching them learn and grow is just a phenomenal piece.
That's so awesome. I love when I learned about the education coach position, I thought, wow, that seems so incredibly innovative and needed.
Yes.
So,
And high pressure.
yeah,
Coaching and
little bit of
educating
that too.
educators, you could
Yeah.
be cyclical about that all day.
Yeah. Well, before we wrap up today's show, NMCAA, as we already mentioned, is currently doing free tax preparation. You can contact one of our 3 main office locations to find out more at 231-947-3780, or you can upload all your tax documents to getyourrefund.org/NMCAA to get started today.
As we already mentioned, NMCAA is currently taking interest forms for Early Head Start, and GSRP now. Go to nmcaa.net to fill out the interest form today. And as we approach the end of the show, Chris, we've got a hard-hitting question for you. If there were one thing you'd want parents to know about preschool at NMCAA, what would it be and why?
It's worth it. It's 100% worth it. If you're nervous about sending your children, don't be. If you feel that it's going to be too much on your child, they will adapt to the classroom, and the classroom will adapt to them. It is worth it. Take the time, sign it up.
Yeah.
Have Liz contact you.
Yeah.
Liz or one of the other
Yes.
many.
I am really
already.
just still reeling at the fact that you got a name
Yeah.
to look forward to.
And Diana, if you had one wish for preschool at NMCAA, what would it be and why? It's kind of a broad question, but just in general.
Is this unlimited?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
absolutely.
unlimited, fantastical
It could
if
be
you
a
want.
totally-
Unlimited.
Yeah, put whatever you'd like out into the
Make it
universe.
huge. So that is a tough one. I guess my wish partly would be, no. My number one wish would be no paperwork for teachers.
I love that.
It really would
Wow.
be if
Okay,
we
yeah.
could do away with all of the paperwork requirements that they have to face, their ability to focus on
Yeah.
the most important part of their job. Teaching children would be absolutely phenomenal. To take the stress off them of those pieces would be huge.
And you say that on the last day of the month. That's paperwork.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. I visited two of the teachers this morning, and that's what they were doing was paperwork.
Yeah.
So my other one, of course, would be unlimited funding.
Yeah.
Yay.
Absolutely.
There we go.
For them to be able
Yeah.
to purchase the things that they need. People don't always understand that early childhood education, not that elementary teachers get paid enough, because I don't believe they do either, but the pay rate for early childhood education is substantially lower. And we still have teachers that buy end of the year baskets out of pocket so that children have play experience and learning experience over the summer. If I could just hand them any amount of money to purchase the things that they need for their classrooms and for their families, that would be huge.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And don't worry, disc people who like spreadsheets. You can create your own. If there's no paperwork, I'm sure they'd be allowed to create their own
They could.
Excel
yeah,
spreadsheets
they
if they
could.
wanted.
They could.
Well, Ryan, it's time for your take.
Well, some of this may be a little bit predictable, but I'm amazingly inspired by the fact that NMCAA continues to support the growth of its employees, whether it's educational, whether it's just from a camaraderie standpoint. There's tons of support to grow you as people, to grow your brains, to grow whatever you'd like. That's exceptional. And I think anybody would be lucky to learn from Diana and Chris in the classroom or otherwise. So yeah, Chris is worth checking out to see what he looks like. He's not scary. I would run towards him. And don't think that I did not forget IFSP. We haven't talked about acronyms for a while, so I'm going to check that out. Diana dropped that earlier.
Yes.
IFSP. I'm going to check out what that is later.
Yeah. I made mental note of that
You
one
did?
as well.
Oh,
I
see,
did.
we've been doing this a while, haven't we?
Well, thank you both for being guests on our episode today. We really appreciate you taking the time to be here with us. If you enjoyed today's podcast, please share the episode or the show link on social media. Follow the podcast to know when a new episode drops and rate the show. It truly helps us spread the word on all the good NMCAA does in the community.
If you would like to become a sustaining donor with a recurring gift or contribute a one-time donation, please check out nmcaa.net/donate or send us a message at collectiveuspodcast@nmcaa.net.
To learn more about Northwest Michigan Community Action Agency or the programs we offer, or would like to make a donation, we encourage you to reach out at 231-947-3780 or visit our website at nmcaa.net. And to the collective today, we encourage you to continue to strive each day to do something to help yourself or your neighbors.